great to be here. I think, as always, Ritu and the team do a superb job at these conferences. I think we're all going to be excited. There's some great, I think, events ahead. I saw the agenda. You've got very interesting topics this year. I think touching on what you did earlier. So I think it's going to be a great 2 days ahead of us. And it was, when Ritu asked me to give a short note just to start off the conference. I said, what do I talk about? There's so much happening in the F&B industry every year. There's so much changing. She was nice enough to give a theme talking about trends. But probably just to start very simply, there's one line which I just thought is probably the right way to sum up where the restaurant industry is. I think we all here, all of us, I'm sure in some way or the other are here because we touch the restaurant industry. And it goes without saying, I think we all are in the right industry, in the right country at the right time. What's happening here, I've been in this sector for about 20 years involved here, and I've seen the way it's been, has its own challenges. It's no doubt exciting throughout the journey, but it is, I think, at a point in time now very different than what I think any of us who've been here for long in this industry have seen before. The industry size, I think you gave the number out there, 6 lakh crore. It's a tremendous number. We're even talking about an industry of that size. I think from what I read in some ways, I think services, the F&B industry is the third largest after financial services and retail. So that's the size of this industry that we have here with us, I think. And what I even heard is that the projections is that while India is expected to grow 7-8% on GDP, the restaurant industry is actually going to grow 1-2% more than that, which just shows not only the pace of growth of our country, but I think we as an industry are going to be taking a large part and leading the charge on that. So, if you understand what's happening here, what is the change in the consumer base? Obviously, the Indian population is growing. That's not the reason. That's been something where I think 15 years ago we got 1.2 billion, we want to 1.4 billion. That's 18% growth. That's 1% a year. That's not translating to where the spends are coming from, where this massive growth is. What has happened, if you see, in that same time, people used to eat out 1-2 times a month. Today, that same consumer, from most estimates, is eating out 10 times a month, is some of the statistics we hear. Obviously happening even at restaurants, through delivery partners, various ways. But that's where the 400% growth we're talking about is happening. That's the change. That's the change in consumer spend that was not there earlier, that we've seen now. The big movement as well that's happened and is continuing is the movement to the organized sector. I think Ritu touched upon very rightfully so. Big corporate groups are entering here. I think, and many of us players who used to be small restaurant players are also emerging as large corporate groups within the sector. It's getting much more organized. And in the next 5 years, it's estimated the organized sector is actually going to be bigger than the unorganized sector within the F&B industry. That's a big leap. When we used to look at this business, I remember 10, 15 years ago, some of the earliest conferences, it was all about organized players trying to come out of it and the unorganized sector being so big. That whole rhetoric is changing completely, where the whole F&B industry is going. What is also exciting to see is you're seeing some of the best and biggest brands entering India on the F&B side. At the statistic you mentioned, 25 brands, that's immense, 25 leading brands. I'm seeing as well in the airport industry. We work a lot in that sector. Most of the biggest brands, we've seen, for example, 2 brands, Wagamama and Gordon Ramsay, as an example, coming first to the airport sector, opening up. So we're seeing the opportunity in India, seeing the opening up to global brands, seeing that happening in the country. It's tremendous what we expect over the next few years. We're already seeing many more brands coming, talking about entering the country. Now, what I wanted to particularly touch on in this piece is some of the recent trends. And I think that's where I said, let me probably divide it into 6 different areas where we're seeing trends. And I'll just run through that, what I'm seeing at least on the ground. These are, I would say, specific things. A lot of it we obviously read in the press. Some things I think on the ground I've seen in our business. Many of you may see the same things as well. So one around concepts. And I think Indian food is cool now. That's very different from what it was many years ago. It was about traditional Indian food. Where will it find its place? Many other cuisines that were considered happening, relevant. Today, Indian food is the cool cuisine of the world. A big change. Even ingredients. We heard about the year of the millet. Great work by the government around that. But you're actually seeing that being used in food products by the top chefs across the country. I know there was a event that you're doing around the chefs, and I think millets and other traditional Indian foods are going to be spoken about. That's what's happening. Coconut, another big thing coming. We're seeing that, those type of ingredients which people used to shy away from mentioning in the menus, today are the forefront of many of the menus of top restaurants around the globe. Uh, Another thing very much is single cuisine restaurants. Chinese, Indian, for that matter, Mexican, are changing, and you see the majority of the market becoming single dish restaurants. You're seeing restaurants around just ramen, for that matter, or sushi. So you're seeing the maturity coming in the market where people are doing single dish restaurants, and the ability for the consumer to absorb that. Another thing, farm to table getting very popular, getting your ingredients from around your region. That's becoming, again, a concept in India we're seeing. It helps with the quality of the food product as well. Beverage, another thing we talk about, it's F and B. We many times talk about the food, we forget the B. Beverage, two things very evident. Coffee, 10 to 12% growth estimated. I think you read anywhere, it's always in that range. Massive uptick in coffee happening across in a country that's a tea-consuming country. But coffee, I think, is really growing there. And on the alcohol side, cocktails. A thing which used to be dead, used to be the last page on the menu was where you put the cocktails. That's changing to the first page on the menu. People are putting separate cocktail menus. That's driving penetration. F&B brands are understanding the value of creativity on the beverage side as well. Another interesting area, which again sometimes gets left out, is this massive growth in weddings and banquets. I mean, we pride ourselves whenever we talk to someone who visits India, we say, oh, India does weddings of 10, 20, 30,000 people, and we laugh at the reaction some of our international friends have. But that's the growth in weddings that are happening across. Wed in India, a concept the government announced in February 23. You see many people obviously looking, and I think that's going to really give a push for the domestic wedding industry. But we're seeing so many brands. I mean, we do a part of weddings as well. We see so many brands now realizing the potential of that, wanting to tie up with banquet players, because it's something that you focus on your core business and you get a partner to execute your brand in weddings, gets a lot of visibility as a great business opportunity as well. And other place I would like to particularly touch on is something we are exposed to, the business where we run around travel, airports, railways, highways. A tremendous opportunity, I think, in India. You see a growth happening. So you have an F&B industry growing, you have a travel industry which is absolutely on, I think, rocket boosters right now. The mix of that is a very creative, very interesting place to be right now. And on the travel side, obviously, we're seeing more people eating at airports, people wanting to try more, the type of concepts coming in. I mean, someone who's flown through the new Bangalore T2 airport, very interesting, the type of F&B concepts done there. I must share, you'll see something really interesting without divulging too much. When you're a passenger, you probably see it. But I know stuff happening at airports like Navi Mumbai and Noida is going to really blow your imagination, the type of food that's going to be coming out there. And even Mopa, Hyderabad, the type of expansion that's already happened on the F&B side, very different than what one would have seen in the past as well. Today, international lounges, I think in many cases, have the best restaurants in the case, the type of menus, the type of cuisines, the menus change every week. That's where we look for some of the most interesting ideas actually to be created and done. And there's a lot of customization of menus also happening geared for travelers. Airports, highways with the whole DME that's happening, as most of you would know, the connectivity. I'm hoping once it's fully built to actually make that trip down from Bombay to Delhi in a car and see how that journey is. That's many times what one piece we didn't really have. If you were driving on the highways in India, it was, how do you say, you were risking your life is a big thing, but if you're driving from one place to another, it wasn't the safest place to be. But that's changing with 3, 4, 5-lane highways coming and connecting the country across. And I think that's going to be a great opportunity for F&B as well. And probably an area which is the second last I'd like to touch, and we can't leave it, is technology. That's something I think is the word that is relevant. We talk about it many times as a buzzword, but truly it is affecting the F&B industry in ways that are changing the way the consumer interacts with us. Whether it's concepts like the cloud kitchens, whether it's the proliferation, obviously, with Zomato and Swiggy, the proliferation of delivery partners doing that whole piece of getting the food to the consumer at home. Whether it's placing your order, which is a small thing, you're placing your order on a table through a mobile POS. So it's going directly into the kitchen. That used to be an experience of anyone who's been in the restaurant industry before. You wrote the order, you went, you put a KOT, you did that manually, you put it in the kitchen. and you were hoping that nothing got missed or it didn't fall down the KOT line out there. All that is gone. Today it's all about directly placing the order, saving time, convenience, customer experience, to even the back end, HR attendance, monitoring, to the consumers touching you, ordering on digital on a phone, the consumer's ordering from your restaurant on the phone, he's monitoring the status of his order on the phone, he's making reservations on the phone. Your experience is now on that phone. So technology is really changing the way consumers interact with us as restaurateurs. And we shouldn't leave and we shouldn't forget that. I mean, even the data of our customers, the loyalty is a big piece. I know for example, I'm looking at that day in, day out. That's one of the big things, big thoughts that always play in your mind. How do you harness that customer data and use it? One line, I heard this somewhere, so I'm not going to take credit for it, but just in homage to one of the great iconic Hindi movies of our time, Hera Fairy. If you remember the song that's there, Dene Wala Jab Bhi Deta. Exactly. And so you see, Bhagwan Deta Hai. That's what the line says, right? Today, I think what your difference today is, data hai Bhagwan. So the world, the importance of information is changing so much that information is what is actually very important, and that data. So I think as us as restaurateurs, need to also realize that, understand that for being able to understand our consumer, being able to cater to that. I think that's something many of us are waking up to now over the last few years. And the last thing I just want to touch on, which I probably think is one of the most important, as an industry, and I think we do a bit of it, we need to do more, is doing good. And by doing good, what I mean is around two areas. One is doing good for the environment and sustainability. It's one of those buzzwords like technology was 5, 7, 8, 10 years ago. And people who consider technology a buzzword are playing a catch-up game today. The same way, sustainability. Many of us consider it a buzzword, it's talking. We have to realize that that's not the case. It's obviously one is doing good for the environment. We all are responsible, good people, we want to do that. But realize for your business, customers value it if you're doing that. The regulations will come. So if you're not ready, you'll be playing a catching up game there as well. And those areas, I think we as an industry need to wake up to. And I see many times that tends to be very down the list because it's not there today. Most people are, we live in the moment. But I think some of these things we have to look forward and kind of work towards. I think the other piece is obviously doing good for society. I know the restaurant industry during the COVID period, we were one of the real industries who stepped up. You saw that across the country. I think that's something that really was a proud badge for us to wear as an industry. So I think that's something we just need to keep at with the culture of doing good for the society. So yes, that's the few things, the few trends I want to touch on. So last, I'll just leave a few takeaways as I step away. So I think the beautiful thing about our industry is we all are peers. We don't consider ourselves competitors unlike most other industries. Everyone, different players are there. We're all competitors. We are peers. We should observe each other, learn from each other, inspire each other. That's what this industry is about. The beauty of this industry is that our business is not about serving meals. When you come in first from outside, you think it's about serving meals. It's actually about creating memorable experiences. That's what I think we realize. So it's not just about what that food comes on the plate. It's about the whole journey of a consumer from the moment he thinks of your restaurant, when he leaves back and he's talking about your restaurant. That's what we need to capture, the essence and the sense of mind of the consumer. That's very important. And lastly, I think one thing I've at least learned in this industry, and it's a bit different if you just think of the play of words. So passion is needed to survive in the F&B industry, not succeed. Passion is needed to survive. But that survival and resilience is what makes you succeed. You just need to keep at it, keep understanding what your consumer wants. You will succeed, believe me. This journey, this industry is about being there, understanding it. You need the passion to continue, but you just need to be at it and in the industry. And believe me, it does reward you. And it is also personally and hopefully financially, which the financial part's a bit more difficult in our industry. Hopefully that changes, but the personal satisfaction is brilliant. But again, I think we just need to all keep listening, learning, adapting, my friends. And that's, I think, something beautiful about our industry. So all the best, and thank you so much.
Hi, good morning. It's such an honor to be here with you all today. I believe this is the 13th edition of the Indian Restaurant Congress, and I know that my father and Kremika have been very, very honored to be associated with this event since the early years. And having seen the way this event has contributed to the success and growth of the Indian restaurant industry as a whole. Just a little background on Cremica. Cremica started its journey when I was very young as a joint venture with Quaker Foods USA. And that's what spearheaded innovation and quality within our business. And that became kind of our value to carry forward into the future. So we were the first business in the world to develop eggless and vegetarian mayonnaise, and also continue to lead the market with very flavorful and diverse sauces, especially, as you mentioned, touching upon Indian cuisine. We were one of the first few brands to develop Indian flavored mayonnaise for brands like McDonald's and many other players. And that commitment for innovation and quality has created a lot of very successful brand partnerships for Cremica, of course, starting with McDonald's, and then subsequently with strong collaborations with brands like KFC, Pizza Hut, Subway, Starbucks, Tim Hortons, Pret A Manger today, and many others. Our relationships with over 25,000 institutional customers in this sector underscores the significance of the impact we've had in this industry. I just want to share, liquid condiments usually is a small part of any restaurant business's, bottom line. It's normally like 2% of a top line. But the quality of our products has led in many customers that we work with to see 20% increase in value and sales. And that influence is very interesting, and that's something that we have also seen in another brand that we've just recently started, which is Zoot, which is what I'm here to also share a little bit about. Zoot is a B2B bakery solutions brand, and we focus and specialize in desserts. As was shared earlier, there's a lot of interesting trends that are happening in the country today. The biggest thing is that the customer is aware. The customer is aware of flavor, the customer is aware of quality, the customer is growingly becoming more and more aware today in India. And they have the demand for a higher quality product. Today, you'll see people buying, let's say, a dessert for 200 rupees at a retail store, which maybe earlier was unheard of. So in that space, we decided that there is an absolute need for restaurants to be able to scale, to have a very strong and good dessert partner. Dessert is something that Indians love. We have a sweet tooth. I think that goes without saying. And it's also something that's very hard to get right when you're trying to scale. It requires a separate kitchen, it requires a separate setup, a separate team, logistics are difficult. So whether you're a restaurant that has one restaurant today, or you have 10, or you want to have 100, or you're a cafe, you need to have a strong dessert partner who can help you scale and grow, successfully. And also to be able to add that extra amount to the ticket value for each customer. Today, we have partnered with many brands like Tim Hortons and Pret A Manger, and Indian brands like Lapino's Pizza, where we do very different types of desserts for them, tailor-made to their menus. And we're also, thanks to the innovations in logistics, thanks to COVID in India, we're able to service the entire country with our desserts. We are touching almost 10,000 customers daily, and I'd like to show you a little presentation on what we do today. Can we see the video? Yeah. Thank you. So just quickly wrapping up on that, we've managed to find a space where we realize that there's actually a lot of food waste. One of the things that we'd like to tackle, and I think restaurants generally struggle with, is food waste, especially if you're at a coffee shop or a chain where you're pre-cooking some of your meals. With frozen desserts, we're able to kind of provide solutions that reduce food waste, help you kind of tackle that kind of cost effectiveness in a much better way. Another thing is infrastructure cost, which is very high in our country. Anyone who runs a bakery or has a bakery in their setup would know exactly what I'm talking about. It's a whole different ball game. We want you to focus on the creativity, the idea, the business, the passion, and let us do the work for you. So that's where we are at with Zoot. And thank you so much for giving me the time to speak here. It's a pleasure to really see you all, and I hope this conference is a huge success. And I hope that the deliberations that we have today on this platform will guide us to our greater success in the future. Thank you.
I had one when they were both speaking, and Varun, you mentioned about airports being the big opportunity, but how do you what are the metrics that you look at, when you open a store at a airport and you decide that, this brand is going to be a success in India? So what are those 3 or 4 parameters that you look at?
Hello? Yeah. Thanks. Yeah, you're right, Ritu. I think airports, in general, as I was mentioning up there, is one thing where I think from an F&B point is in some way leading the charge of concepts, ideas, creation. You're seeing some of the best brands coming to airports and doing their best foot forward in airports. When I think you're coming to an airport, one needs to realize that there are few things which are very different to being on the high street. I know we did it the hard way when we entered airports. It was in 2008. It's a very different environment to go in because, again, in restaurants, and not that it's different in airports in the truest sense, but it's about service, experience. You have time to create. You cook for many cases. I mean, obviously, a lot of QSRization, as we call it, is happening, but most concepts creating the menu from food from scratch. Airports, time to deliver food. So you need concepts that can deliver quick. Your consumers are high anxiety, high pressure when they come to your outlet. They're not looking for someone to be talking to them for 10 minutes or have a conversation up and down. They're looking for quick, efficient, fast service. So brands that can create that, deliver a good product, I think that's a starting point for airports, the speed of service. I think in addition to that, I think adaptability. So a brand, no matter which, and we've seen it with some of the biggest QSR brands, they come in an airport, understand, they tweak the menus actually for an airport environment. And if you actually go and notice, you'll always see there are 1, 2, 3 items which are in the airport, which are not there on a high street. And it's for the top brands as well. So I think people are realizing that. So I think those areas, adaptability, speed of service, I think in terms of concept, I think the airport consumer today is ready for anything. The example I gave up there, Wagamama, Gordon Ramsay, brands like that coming in to airport. Airports is something. For example, we're looking at doing both of those brands, across some of the airports in my hometown in Mumbai. We were talking. So you're going to see stuff like that happening in airports over there. So it's brilliant stuff on the brand side. So I hope that answers a bit of the question.
Well, please raise your hand if you have any question. We'd be very happy to. Can you please pass the mic there?
Good morning, everyone. And thank you, Ritu. And thank you so much, Varun and Sana. Great session. And somebody from being in the industry, I also seeing a lot of change which has happened, I would say, in last 13 years since we started this. One thing, and can I say that both of you are second generation entrepreneurs?
Yes, possibly third also, yeah.
Third, second, third. So this is one thing which I am seeing a lot in our country. I've seen it in Asia and other regions as well. In our country, I can say I'm working with a lot of second, third generation entrepreneurs like yourself, very smart. And it's actually good to see both of you here representing your organizations. How would you, because you must have started it and you would have seen the challenges, what message you want to give to people here who are second, third generation? Because it's not easy. It looks easy from the outside, but it's not easy. And most of them are investing in F&B. What would be your message to them? Because in my business, that is something which I'm seeing happening where, in fact, 25 brands which Ritu mentioned, I would say 40% of them are brought in by second, third generation entrepreneurs. So what would be your message to them? Because I can see that both of you are really, heading that role very confidently.
So I think it's an honor to be a second and third generation entrepreneur, so that you have to really value whatever it is your family has built in whatever way. And to grow from that is a great privilege. So if you start with that base and kind of be mindful of that, you can really add layers of innovation, use technology like, Varun mentioned, and kind of create a scale that is unimaginable perhaps to your own family. Because sometimes tradition can be limiting. So in that sense, it's good to hold on to the base of tradition. Just to give you an example, for instance, I started Zoot using a lot of my grandmother's recipes, and the idea was to bring my grandmother's recipes to the consumer today. What she used to make in her bakery when she started the business, that went away when it became Cremica and Mrs. Bector's. So that was the idea. That's where we started from. And it became a whole different concept with a lot more flavors, a lot more desserts, catering to new consumers. So we didn't let tradition hold us back. We used tradition to propel us to the future. So I think that's a great way to grow. On the other hand, I think second and third generation entrepreneurs have to be really respectful and mindful of people who came before them if they're working within the same family structure.
I agree.
Yeah. So we have a lot of people that are senior, that have been working for many years. If you're open to learning and growth and not coming from a sense of entitlement, I think there's a lot to do.
I think I love what you're doing with the bakery in your business, because I've seen that as being a major barrier, because it is a complicated subject. And as a woman, I love bakery. And to be able to have that at scale, I think that's what you're thinking. You said you are serving 10,000 customers. So it's brilliant. I love that.
No, we try our best. So normally they say the first generation builds the wealth, second generation maintains, third generation destroys it. So we're the third generation. So I hope that last part doesn't happen. But but truly, that the opportunity we've got, I think less about generation. I think I would guess the same for Sana as be that, we've been brought up in the industry. This is at least what we know, it's integral to what we are. And I think it's just that where the industry is at the moment is exciting. So there's a responsibility on all of us as business leaders in our business to take advantage of that. That's what I said. I think the first line I gave, right industry, right country, right moment. It's very true. It's not just, a statement. It's very, very true. You don't see this. There's something happening on the ground. Yes. There's something going on. And we just need to be mature enough, smart enough. It just so happened to happen in third generation. Maybe first generation happened, they would have done much better than us. That's a different thing. We're lucky to be where we are, I think, in the time in this country at this moment, no doubt.
I agree. In fact, what you're saying, right moment. I remember going to China 20 years back, and that's what I sort of could feel it, and I think that's what we are all feeling right now, being here. Thank you so much. Love you.
Hello. Hi, thank you for the great session. My question is to you, Varun sir. We've seen, like in the past 5 years, there's been modernization of Indian street food a lot. There have been really exciting brands which have popped up for vada pav or other things, even say chai. My question is, please be don't offended by it. Like you said, airport is an exciting space, and these brands value that. And ultimately, their goal is to reach there. But seeing the dominance of companies such as yours or say, other listed companies, how can a new brand, established but new, which already has a lot of, say chains, how can they approach and get into the airports?
Right. So not offended at all. It's probably, in this sector, one of the easiest questions I had. So believe me, people throw much more harder questions on airports. So it's a bit of very right question. And please don't call me Varun sir. I'm, it sounds this or up there. But, the thing in the airports and the reason companies like that are there, it's a global thing. Is the airport sector by nature is a very difficult place to operate. The regulations, the security. You don't have a kitchen in many cases, so you need to actually have a central kitchen. And the reason with a player being there is they can consolidate all that. So you don't have infrastructure, to have a kitchen, for example, in every unit. Gas in many cases is non-existent. So what happens is when you do partners, and that works globally, that you have a partner that has that experience of working, it tweaks the model accordingly. It makes it work. It works with a partner brand. We do that in many cases. We've gone into regions where we work with local players. Now, the thing is, I said it up there, you need a brand that's ready to be adaptable for an airport. You need a concept that can be served quickly. And obviously, you need something that a consumer recognizes, because the other piece, which obviously is, I think, is a big bit in airports, it's expensive to operate in an airport. So the brand needs to be able to operate, work commercially. Because the type of rents in airport, I don't want to go the numbers out there, but it is significantly more. When I first went into airports and I had my rents in the, I used to look at my P&L for the high street. I went into airport, I couldn't sleep for a few nights. I said, how have we signed this deal like this? So it's a very different environment. But you learn, you adapt, you become efficient, you operate in a particular manner. So, for example, for us, we only look at travel. We have a team. The TFS only looks at that day in, day out. It's completely separate from many of our other verticals. We do banqueting, we do restaurants like Opportunity, Bombay, completely separate because the mentality, the way of working, and that's where we want to work with brands. Most of them are my friends. I've been in the industry. I know many of them for long. We want to work, and make it suitable for airports. And I hope that answers a bit the question. Yeah.
Thank you. It does partially. So, and say a brand is able to overcome these nuances.
Right.
Suppose they are adaptable and all the the back end is sorted, safe. They can be profitable, but there is kind of a red tape for new brands at the airports. They cannot enter easily, right? So that's the question. Like, how is that possible? How can that be approached?
So if I'm saying one way, obviously, is the airport partners themselves, are very encouraging, and many times they also encourage brands that if there's opportunity, see the different ways airport. One is inside security. I don't want to get very technical out here, but inside, outside, maybe we can converse a bit more. Right. But it is about just understanding with the brand, are they ready for that? And that's where we always are looking. Today I think the number we have roughly about 80 brand partners we work with across airports. So it's working with each one, getting it right. There's a lot of effort, time that goes in that. It's not as simply as let's go in an airport. So I'm happy to have a chat. Maybe offline
Sure,
we can.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Thank
a lot.
you.